happens to you. But if as a child, if we were allowed to express it, it would have been released. But 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 the expression was being judged, so they suffer alone. So trauma is never in response to the, as we grow up, trauma is not a is not a response to the present moment, but to the past. Small things happen and you get triggered. You behave violently or disproportionate to that event. Actually, you are not reacting to the current event. It is not a response to the present moment, but to the past. The psychological wound that you're carrying from your childhood. And that's when the children become extremely sensitive. As they grow up, they become extremely sensitive. Because the wound is there. For example, somebody do like this to me. I'm like, oh, what happened? But imagine below this t-shirt, there's a huge wound inside. And somebody does to me like this, I'm like ready to attack. Why are you hitting me? Now the person is only tapping on me. But because of my wound, I am thinking that, oh, that person is trying to hit me because it pains me. So we become extremely sensitive because the wound is open. The nerve endings are still open. So that's why the people who carry the trauma are very sensitive. Little bits thing and they will take it personally. If the environment is positive, they'll feel very extremely elated. If the environment is negative, they'll become extremely down. Huge mood swings, ups and downs. Because they have become very sensitive to the environment. It can become a curse or boon, depending on the environment. And as this child grows, at certain age, after the age of 18, 17, 18, 19, they start developing this, then this mental illness starts showing up. Because what neurosynaptic connections the brain needed to make, did not make. And I don't want to call it mental illness. Rather, I would say they have been injured. They are injured. All mental illnesses, basically they are injured. There's an injury that they are sustaining. But whatever emotions the child goes through, the body keeps the score. And it never lies. That's why nothing records the effect of sad life as graphically as the human body. Later on, as you grow up, your body will tell you the body's memories carries all the past, and it will reflect in their behavior, in their action, in their mental growth, in their physical illnesses, in their mental illnesses. All mental illness comes from somewhere very specific. It doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from something very specific. It has a story, and in that story, you were the only one that had no power. You can check with any people who are going through mental illnesses. There's a story, they have a story, and in that story, they were the only one who had no power. Because as a childhood, they felt they had no power. And now they relived that story so many times in their mind and actually exaggerated that story. So they were the only one who felt powerless. And that's how, there comes a point when the pain becomes unbearable. That's how they become prone to addiction. All addictions are painkillers. It's a coping mechanism to numb and run. Because when they have some alcohol or some drug or some chemical, some substance, at that moment they numb their pain and they feel good. Wow, I never felt like this. It feels so good. Because the pain is no more controlling their life. The pain is no more bothering them. And then that becomes a coping mechanism. And then I'm going to talk more about addictions later. So the childhood coping mechanism becomes a problem when it goes from state to trait. It becomes a problem when it goes from state to trait. Initially, the childhood coping mechanism was what? As a child, it was to become inauthentic. Because he never wanted to lose the attachment. So I rather become inauthentic than losing the attachment of my parents. So that becoming inauthentic was the coping mechanism. But because of that inauthenticity, the child lost the connection with his inner being. So initially, which was the state? As the child grows up, it becomes a trait. It becomes the child's state of being, becomes their personality. That's why what we call as mental illnesses, there are actually no physical markers of mental illness other than the subjective or the behavioral patterns. Like their moods, their sleeping patterns, their appetites, their responses to situations. So like all concepts, even mental illness is a construct. A particular frame that we have developed to understand a phenomena. And to explain what we observe then. Because the way person with a mental illness, they have developed a different phenomena to interpret a situation. Because that was the way they could cope up during their childhood. But once they grow up and they use the same coping mechanism or the same mental framework, people call them mad. But that is not socially acceptable. That is not a social norm. That's why we call it mental illness. And now we have identified so many mental disorders. There are more than 234 now mental disorders. As per this mental disorders that directory in US. They've labeled everything. But actually, mental disorders has to be, even if you recognize it as a disorder, the trait as a disorder, it is something to be looked more compassionately. Then all the more it needs to be looked compassionately because you know that the person went through a difficult childhood. And the way the person is behaving now, this pattern is not because of the current moment or the current situation. Because of the past, because of the trauma that the person is sustaining. So the person needs help. If he is angry or behaving violently, he or she needs to be looked more compassionately because because that means they need more help. They need more compassion. They need more love. They need more understanding. Depression. What is depression? The insufficiency of the neurotransmitter serotonin. Right? Insufficiency of serotonin in the brain. Because of not the right neurosynaptic connections, you're not producing enough serotonin. ADHD, insufficiency of dopamine, the motivation molecule, the pleasure chemical. Bipolar disorder, borderline disorder, so many. Narcissist personality disorder, so many disorders. But the root cause, if you see, is in the childhood. My disease lies in my dis-ease. They are not ease. They are not at ease. So the important question is not what's wrong with you. When somebody is behaving in a certain way, these kind of patterns, the important question is not what's wrong with you, but the important question is what happened with you. This question can potentially change the whole course of treatment. So friends, it is very important as a parent, how do we emotionally empower our child? Because if we do not emotionally empower our child, the brain is a historical organ. It will always remember. Our brain stores our personal narrative. The child, as they grow up, they will store that personal narrative. It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. It's much easier. As they grow up, then to deal with their issues becomes very challenging. Then to repair them is very challenging. Right? That's why it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. This I've covered it. This I've covered it in non-violent communication. To express your needs. What need of yours is not met? First is clear observation. 4 steps of conflict resolution, and not just parent-child, but anything, any conflict. Clear observation. What's going on? And then what did they do and how did it made you feel? What did they do and how it made you feel? And when you felt that, what need of yours is not met by that behavior? And then you put a clear request without expectation. I would love you to do, I like so many good things about you, but for this thing, I would love you to do, if you could do it differently like this. Because when you do this, I feel hurt, or I feel angry, or upset, or rejected. So clear request. Then the person knows that this need of yours is not met. So clear request without expectation. If interpersonally, if we can follow these 4 steps, it can easily resolve so many conflicts. Day-to-day conflicts. deep-rooted conflicts. Because when you do that, you instantly make a connection. Because all human needs are universal. You connect to their need, they connect to your need, and then you make connection. So the purpose is to make connection. Then the fifth is the joy of unstructured play. For the child, allow your children to experience, allow children the experience of free play. It is important for them to have to freely play, in order to feel alive and mature. Let them break the toy. Because kids love to experiment with their environment. It's okay, allow them to break the cup. Because that's how they learn through play. They learn through play, fun and curiosity. Kids are a source of chaos and disorder. That's how a child should be. So give them the sovereign right. It is their sovereign right to create chaos. Give them their sovereign right to muddle and fumble and tumble. Don't kill their curiosity. Because if you don't kill their curiosity in the childhood days, then they'll retain their curiosity throughout their adulthood. Most of the inventors are inventors because they retain their curiosity throughout their childhood and let it come through their adulthood. That's how they became the inventors. Sometimes the child will make some mistake and they will go through some pain. It's okay, let them experience. It's okay if they suffer a little and experience pain. It's okay if they burn their hand in the fire. But as parents, we try to fix everything for them. And this is the biggest lesson for parents. Sometimes as parents, we need to surrender. Life is pain. Life is unpredictable. It is an adventure. But as children, they have the capacity to morph. One moment they are crying and the next moment they are smiling or playing or laughing. They are playful. It is we as adults, we are rigid. They are not. So we need to learn from them, actually. Instill fairness in the child. Children learn through their eyes, right? Remember this, children learn through their eyes. What they are seeing, not what you are telling them. Children hear through their eyes. Not the words you are telling them, but whatever they are seeing you do, mirror neurons in them, right? That gets activated. And they are watching you. So instill fairness. When you make a mistake, as parent, when we make a mistake, feel free to say sorry to your child. Apologize to your child. Acknowledge your mistake. If as parent we learn to acknowledge our mistake, the child will learn to acknowledge their mistake. As they grow up, they will not defend their fallacies or their any weaknesses or any wrongdoings. But as parents, we want children not to make mistakes, but we can make 10 mistakes and we'll never even acknowledge them. We want them to say sorry, but we will never say sorry. And in the mind, the child's mind, he's wondering. He's thinking, not fair. What the hell? What the heck? They want us to behave in a way, and they themselves don't behave in that way. And when we don't behave, we should say sorry. But when they don't behave, they go scot-free. So for the child mind, the child feels that world is an unfair place because parents were unfair. So as they grow up, the child feels the world is an unfair place to live in. The world is very unfair. Embrace authenticity. Allow the child to rest from the work of earning his right to be who he is. As he is. Allow the child to be very authentic. He should not need to put in effort to earn his right to get your love or to get your attention. Right? Because we are wired for authenticity. The biggest stress about human beings is trying to who you are not. That is the biggest stress of trying to be who you are not. So the child, as I told you, the child should feel welcome to express the way they are, being completely authentic. And they should know that the parents don't judge them. They are just giving the deep listening, compassionate listening, offering your complete presence. Respect their authenticity. Then the relationship becomes joyful. The bond that links your true family is not one of blood, but of respect and joy in each other's lives. The bond that links your true family is not one of blood, but of respect and joy in each other's lives. Eighth is foster autonomy. So create autonomy in children. If they are watching videos for 2 hours or video games, if you are playing video games for 2 hours, if you want them to watch for say 1 hour, then involve them in the decision making process. Tell them why they should not, and then ask them, what do you think is the right time? Of course, you may start with half an hour. But then eventually they should feel that they made the decision. When they say 1 hour, they should feel that, oh, I decided it. It was my decision. I felt heard. I was not imposed. Ask as a request, not demand. Because force creates resistance. When you force, it creates resistance. Demand response is what? The child becomes submissive or a rebel. And both are not healthy for the child. How you say what you say is important, right? The child listen and respond more to your energy and tone than to your words. In that video, we said how the mother shouting to the child, "You're not really sorry. Okay, I forgive you. Okay, I forgive you." So, what is the tone of the voice? Sometimes parents, even if you have to pretend saying sorry, but the tone is not of sorry. Because our ego does not allow that. So but the child respond more to energy and tone than to your words. It's that non-verbal communication. 90% of the communication between parent and child is non-verbal. For a child, that non-verbal communication is what they absorb, 90%. Only 10% is verbal. So involve them in decision making. Make them your accountability partners. If you want them to change something, tell them that this is what I want to change and let's become each other's accountability partner. So they also feel equal. They feel they can also involve in your decision and you are giving them autonomy, some power to them. The ninth is education beyond schooling. So friends, we all know education through school is limiting. There's a limitation. It's important, it's good. But again, it is limiting. So as a parent, we should know how much importance to give to that schooling. And especially in today's time when the world is changing so fast. What is important is their emotional growth. Mark Twain said, don't let schooling come in the way of education. Schooling is one thing, education is different. Schooling is one part of the education. But the other education, parents can play an important role. Schooling does not teach you emotional empowerment, but parents can teach emotional empowerment. Parents can teach how to adapt to failures, how to adapt to life challenges. But school doesn't teach all that, right? That's why child feels so sad now to go to school. They should be happy to go to school, but they feel sad to go to school. School doesn't teach how to learn. But parents, we can teach them how to learn so that they become lifelong learners. But most of the time, the parents' conditioning or their unconsciousness obscures their ability to see the child for who he is or she is. Parents conditioning, oh, my child should come first in the class. If my child gets poor grades, my friends will make fun of me. It will be so embarrassing for me in front of my friends. And what happens is, this immediate placement of the way, what we call it as a norm, no, every parent wants the child to excel. That obscures the ability for the child to develop their own way. Children are connected. They have come with their own soul plan, own soul path, own soul purpose. They know how to develop their own way. But because we keep imposing the way we want it to be,